Here we go. All right, welcome back to Hawaii Real, everybody. I'm your host, Ioke, and this episode is brought to you by Hawaiian Springs Water, our beverage host for Hawaii Real. Hawaiian Springs Water, alkaline, 7.7 alkaline. Like bottled straight from the Big Island. They just throw it in a bottle and send it in the box.
Pretty fresh.
Awesome. Yeah, I love alkaline water, especially after you eat all those like French fries and stuff.
Oh, the things you're not supposed to be eating.
All the things
right?
I'm not
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah,
yeah.
got that. Yeah. Okay, but now, see, now you're drinking. Now you're gonna make me drink.
Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna make you drink. Because then I'm gonna make you talk. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Wet the whistle.
Good to go.
Here we go. Okay, now I have with me today Joe Akana.
Aloha, everybody.
Thank you
Joe
so much
Akana.
for coming on the show, Joe.
Thank you.
You are running for U.S. Congress.
Yes, sir.
In Congressional District 2.
Yeah, Congressional District 2 it's a statewide race. It basically is on all of the neighbor islands and all of the rural Oahu. Basically, if you were east of the Kolaus, starting from Makapu Point, going all the way up to North Shore, Laie, Haula, all the way through that area, back down to Waihiwa, out to Wailua, and then out to about Ko'olina. That's basically everything east and outside of the mountains and outside of the mountains.
So all the country people.
Yeah, a lot of agriculture land out there.
Not the townies too much, but yeah. A little bit of background on you. Where are you from? What neighborhood are you born and raised and grew up at?
Yeah, I grew up on the west side, out in the west side, Nanakuli area. So I was fortunate enough in my freshman year. My dad was in the military, so we traveled all over. I came back home, and I think it was 1977 when he retired. And I went to Nanakuli for a year, and then I was blessed and fortunate enough to be able to go to the Kamehameha schools.
Nice.
I got accepted up there, graduated. In fact, we just had our 40th anniversary, alumnus something. Yeah, we just had our 40th alumni celebration this year. And then after that, I joined the military in the Air Force, got accepted into the intelligence world. I know it's an oxymoron, right? Military intelligence,
yeah.
Right. So I got accepted in that, became what they call a targeteer. Basically, we're the ones go around planning operations to
a target tier.
Yeah, we blow stuff up.
Nice.
Yeah, dropping big bombs on places. Yeah, or putting missiles right through your front window.
There's some questions about that in the podcast later on.
Yeah, maybe or maybe not. There's certain things you just don't talk about, right? Yeah. But after that, after about 10 years, I said, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. And I went out, worked the corporate world, got in the sales field, worked in some doing financial things like GMAC mortgage, worked doing home equity lines, lending, all this kind of stuff. And then had layoffs. They had different things happen. And I said, well, what am I going to do? I gotta do something here. I gotta go survive. So when reapplied, now I worked as a civil service. Got accepted in 2004 to work for U.S. Pacific Command. And doing as an intelligence officer instead of an analyst. Now I'm an officer.
That's
as a
that
GS
big
ranking.
building outside of Pearl Harbor Memorial.
So there's a big gray building with no windows.
Yeah,
that was where I was started, and then they ended up moving me up to U.S. Pacific Command, up in the headquarters of Camp Smith.
Oh, okay.
So I was up there where there's more big buildings with no windows.
Right. Back then, the fuel was pretty secure back then, though, right?
Well, it's funny because I had a chance to actually go look at, as my job. That was my job, was to look at how do we take things like this out? How do we blow these type of munitions or buildings up?
Wow. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I have a different perspective on the Red Hill issue. In 2007, we got to go see it from that perspective. I'm looking at from that lens of how do we take this building out if we had to
militarily,
right? If this was we were say an opposing or an opponent, and we knew this was their facility, how would we blow something like this up? Right. And you think about it, it's 100 feet of lava rock. Try to blow it through that.
All you needed was a forklift,
right? Or something like this, right? So it's like you're looking through that, and you go, well, how would you blow this up if you had to? It's like I wouldn't. I would just go blow up the pumping stations,
right?
Because why would you try to put a missile through that when you could just go take out the pumping stations and have the same effect, right? And that was part of the evaluation where you're looking for. So you've got to have these pumping stations from somewhere. So when I looked at Red Hill at that time, it was one of those you go, wow, there are so many safeguards. They had a mirror back pressure systems, up pressure system, down pressure system. You had all of these things, and you're going, man, this is a lot. they would have to go through a lot to have an accident like this. And even like you said, there's a forklift that comes in and hits the valve and boom. Like really, okay, let's see how that one worked, right? But there's so many other, when we really start to look at that whole issue, and I think people may not be aware of it. They're all pushing to have this immediately removed and what happens then and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, they got that. And it should be, because they've proven that there was a leak somewhere going through the system. I said, but they got to really understand the depth of that. And that is that Red Hill facility is the strategic reserve for Hawaii, for both the military and the civilian side of things. That's the strategic reserve there. If that is no longer available, and we have let's just say we have a tsunami or a hurricane comes through and wipes out Tesoro refinery out there in Kalaeloa, what do you got left? There's nothing left if you've taken out all those strategic reserves and you've taken out that. Now, what do you have? It's going to be interesting times in Hawaii, because everything will basically come to a screeching halt. There will be no more gas other than what's in people's cars or what's in, the gas stations at the time. Right? So if that all happens, it'd be an interesting time in Hawaii. So I think, from what I understand with the Red Hill issue, is that the military is moving forward with that. I think they're going slower than they have to. There's always ways they can make this thing happen faster. Yeah. I don't know if they're slowing down just to, with the government, it's always, we got to assess. We got to make sure we understand what the problem is. Then, we got to go through the process of understanding what we understood. Then we got to go to understand what we understood. Yeah. Having been
that's at all levels of government.
Yes, it's not just the federal or this thing,
right. This is a good example of where government kind of has hiccups going into it. And you look at that, that's what the military has going on, or the U.S. federal government has going on. But that kind of does translate into Hawaii state government and the city.
The gross inefficiencies.
And things that just, inefficiencies, things that don't get done. It get done very quickly in a corporate side. Yep. That for some reason can't get done in a timely manner.
It's funny you bring that up, because I remember going down to the Department of Parks and Permits, right? I was trying to get a permit pulled for something. I think this was several years back. And I'm sitting in the lobby. It's just me and two other guys. And we're like, this is cool. I'll be out of here in 5 minutes, And I'm sitting there, and the guy's over there. He finishes the one guy. Like, man, they got two guys in here now. This is sweet. We'll be done. And the guy just sits there. And he sits there. And he sits there. 3 guys come walking in. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And the guy's still sitting there. And 3 more people walk in, and the guy's still just sitting there. I'm like, what's going on? So finally, he calls my number. Like, dude, you got 15 people in here now. What happened? Why couldn't you just go? I can only do so many an hour. I was like, what? You finished that guy in 2 minutes. He goes, yeah. My regulations and my job requirements say I can only do so many an hour. So I have to wait until I get to that time, because I can only do so many an hour. I was like, dude, but in the meantime, now you got a lobby full of people trying to wait in here to get a permit, which you could have had them, you could have had it done over with. He goes, yeah, that's part of my contract. I'm like, that's interesting. Yeah, gross inefficiencies.
Yeah, and that arm just kind of seeps into all aspects. Maybe not all aspects, but a lot of aspects of government, where things they can't get done faster, because this is the limit of how fast we can work. This is the most we're allowed to do, not the most we can do.
Right.
Because we're not working for maximum productivity to please the customer. We're just working to set our statistics and our standards.
Right. And
for our paycheck.
As we talked earlier about, being a Lean Six Sigma, right? That just irritates, right? to no end, because you're like, oh my gosh, this is so inefficient. You irritate. You go, oh.
Just so far as hiring people. It's why is hiring people in the city so hard? Why does it take so long? What is the problem?
Right.
How come this person can't get this job? Why we have 10 vacancies over here and we have one person doing the job that 11 people are supposed to be doing, and you can't hire anybody? Why are they?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, to say the least.
Like you said, though, that's prevalent in not just the federal, that's the state, that's city and county.
It goes all the way down.
And, I've always been of the opinion that if you want to get a problem solved, give it to business owners.
Yeah.
They're going to find the most efficient way to do things, right? Don't give it to a government to solve any problem. They're not going to solve problems.
Right.
That's not their job.
I mean, they're at the lowest bidder a lot of the times too.
Right. But if you want to get something done and have it done smartly and efficiently and professionally, give it to a business owner. They'll figure it out. Healthcare issues. If people want to look about healthcare, that's another one, right?
Yeah.
And you want to figure it out. Don't give it to the government to solve. Give it to a business company. Hey, let's go figure out how we can make this more efficient. How can we make it better, faster, so we can get this actually done? Yeah.
Then the government comes back. No, that's too fast for our timeline. Like, God, run it.
Yeah, that is so
Yeah.
true. That is so true. Yeah, that's too fast for us. Sorry.
Yeah, it's too fast for us. No,
You
we
painted
can't- we
that
can't do
wall
that.
too fast. You got to slow down just a little
No,
bit.
there's procurement violations because you didn't do your due diligence in looking at all vendors in the globe to find out which one was the cheapest and best. You just went with whatever was there. It's like,
Right.
But I got the job done.
Done. Right. Yeah.
No, you didn't get the job done correctly the way we want it done. It's like,
Right.
oh my God.
Because you didn't follow that little regulations, and you didn't follow this, and you missed that clause over there. Okay. Did it get done? Yeah. But,
Yeah, I mean, I could have a whole podcast episode on
I'm sure.
procurement with the city.
I'm sure. Yes, indeed.
But that's not what we're here. We're here for you. And so recently, actually today's what is it? June 23rd, 2022. My God. Wow.
We're halfway through the year already.
June 23rd, 2022.
Yeah.
So I'm going to edit that part. All right. So today is June 23rd, 2022. And the Supreme Court just had a ruling that just came out today on the Second Amendment
Right.
with regards to what was happening in New York, being very restrictive on who they give concealed carry permits to,
Right.
which was basically almost nobody except for like professional armed guards. So you could hire an armed guard, but you yourself couldn't carry a gun.
Right.
I was like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't
I don't know.
make
I mean,
any sense.
that produces jobs, I guess, right? But that kind of translates to Hawaii laws, or might, or is.
Yeah. I'm a huge 2A proponent, right? I'm going to just put that out there. And if we understand what the 2A actually is, I'll get confused many times. Oh, that's the right to bear arms. It's like, yes, you're right. But you got to read what it says, that it's the right to bear arms against the tyrannies of an oppressive government. And it shall not be infringed upon, right? That's what it basically says in the Second Amendment. So if you're really looking at that and you look at what it says, then you have the right to carry.
Right.
You have the right to defend yourself.
Right.
And I think
There's two words in there. There's
Right.
keep and bear.
Right.
Right. You have the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
shall not be infringed.
It's very short, to the point.
And what was it meaning for? If we start to think about when they wrote the 2A and the amendments with the Constitution, they had just come through a tyranny, right, from England at the time. So that was very fresh in their mind of what a tyranny would look like. So when you say, whoa, this is an old thing, it's 200 years old, but you got to remember when they wrote that, they had just come through that, the overtaxation. They had just come through that period of, taxes on stamps and taxes on liquor and taxes on food and taxes on lumber and
Which, by
all
the way,
that.
the taxes that they fought the war over were far less than taxes we currently pay today.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And you look at the inflation rate today.
Right.
Right.
I mean, percentage-wise, like they fought. They went to the revolution took place over a less percentage of taxing than we currently get today.
Yeah.
But I guess we do have the representation. But
Yeah. Okay. Somewhat like that. They have to go show up to work, though.
yeah, you gotta show it.
Got to show up for work there first. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to the 2A, that's what it's there for, right? That's what it's there for, is to be able to defend yourself, protect yourself. And I got no issues. People ask me, well, what about you? I said, I went through when I got my qualified to go get my weapon, my pistol, and that kind of thing. I was like, yeah, you do a basic background check. Basic background check. Make sure you didn't have any prior arrest or felony records. They're like, yeah, that's not a problem. But when you start to dwell into people and you start to get deep into their records and their personal lives, I'm sorry, now you're infringing on their rights.
Right.
You're taking away their basic freedoms. You look at what we have, the Fifth Amendment, what is that for the part of the due process laws, right? The Fourth Amendment, part of due process. The Fifth Amendment, not to infringe upon your own self. In other words, you cannot incriminate yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the First Amendment, the right to freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of the right to petition the government. And, you have the right to, when you gather, freedom to gather, right?
Yeah, right to
protest, right? It's like those are basic freedom. Peaceably protest, right?
That word is in there.
Yeah, you're right. That is right. You have the right to peacefully protest, and that's part of your Constitution. That's part of everyone's. We all have those rights, and all the 2A really does is becomes the enforcing mechanism to make sure that I have that right.
Right.
Just like you have that right, And so you was like, well, what about that person over there? It's like, no, we all have those rights. You have the right to your freedom. I have the right to my freedom. And you don't have the right to intrude on my freedoms. It's like, I don't have the right to intrude on your freedom. Of course, you can't go into a fire, a theater and yell fire. That just, come on, man.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense.
There's limitations to the First Amendment.
Right. But, with the Second Amendment, and that was part of the discussion, I believe, today, was that, now it's, you're infringing on other people's rights because now you have the right to conceal and can carry. I'm like, that's, again, you're infringing on that person's right to bear arms, right? So I kind of, I'm liking what they did with the SCOTUS is doing that. I think it's putting it back to the right emphasis where it's supposed to be with the people. They have the right to take care of themselves. They have the right to defend themselves, their families, and where they're out.
Right. And you as a citizen shouldn't have to prove that you have a need to do so.
Right.
It's like that should be implied.
Because it's already, as part of a citizen, you already have that right.
It's like I don't have to prove why I need a car in order to go buy a car and drive.
Right.
I just have to prove that I can.
Yep.
One of your other platforms you're running on, I'm reading off your card here.
No worries.
Supporting school choice programs and education alternatives. So what's your drive behind that school choice programs and education alternatives?
Yeah, I think the most important thing to look at is we look at our education system in the state, right? The state spends about $14,000 a year per child. We have about 287,000 students. You do the math, that comes out somewhere close to around $4 billion as far as cost. But as a business owner, when you look at it, you go, but what are we getting? What is our return on investment for this? Right? If you looked at it, well, our kids continue to rank, 46, 47, 48, 49 nationally in their education rates. It's like, well, my goodness, we're spending so much money, but we're getting so little return. So when I talk about alternatives, it gives us an opportunity to say, hey, here's an option, guys. If you have a teacher that is willing to tutor students, right, as an outside, let's just say they're frustrated with the system, right? They're still certified teachers, they're still good to go, but they're frustrated with this, and they say, hey, I wonder if I could tutor kids outside as a side business for myself or as a business for myself.
Right.
And if you do the numbers, if they say, hey, state, if you were to program or fund this for, say, $5,000 a family that wants to do this for a child, and the $5,000 would be basically $3,600 towards tuition, $800 for a computer system, and $800 for your internet cost, or whatever that number comes out to, about $5,000, right? And if you're a teacher were to be tutoring kids outside of class, because they proved it. They proved that they could do it with the COVID. One good thing about COVID is you proved you could actually teach kids online. Was that the most efficient way to do it? Not for all kids, but certainly for some of them, that was a really good, efficient way to do it. But you would have these teachers now teaching these kids. And if they're getting let's just say $3,600 or $300 a month, and if you had 25 students, that's $7,500 a month for the tutor. If they're making $7,500 a month, that's about $90,000 a year.
That's a good amount.
Not bad. Yeah. I think it's more than what they're making right now.
Right.
As a teacher in their pay. I don't know what their pay scales are. Right. I don't. I know there's some different rates, and the more education levels they have, the more you get paid and this kind of stuff.
Teachers are going to hate me, but their pay is not that bad.
Yeah.
For having 3 or 4 months off out of the year, it's not bad.
Yeah.
They get paid. It's like, guys, I don't get that much time off.
Yeah. But as such, if you think about it, if you're wanting to make more money, right, as a teacher, now you have an opportunity to do that. You can actually make more, and you're benefiting the same kids. You can actually work from home. You're doing these kind of, you're doing those kind of things. It benefits the state because now they're not having to pay $14,000 for that kid or child to go to school. It benefits the mom and dad because they get to actually pick the curriculum that their children are learning, right? Meaning they're not having to hear, hey, I don't want to know about all this, all this stuff that you see coming out, the CRTs, and I don't want my child learning about that. I want them learning about reading, writing, arithmetic, science. I want them learning about these things. But the mom and dad get to pick the curriculum. They get to choose what the teacher is teaching them. And of course, they're involved. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. The teachers win, the mom and dad win, the states win, and even the unions win, because the teachers still got to be certified. They still got to be paying their dues. They're not like they're not going to lose. They just have an alternative way of thinking about education and looking at something different.
Now, does that come into play with, or what are your thoughts on standardized testing? For education? And I only bring this up because I recently saw something on the Scandinavian countries and their method of high school education, and
it's like the SATs and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, one of their big things was how come American schools are they're training their kids to do well on a test. They're not educating their kids necessarily. They're training them to do well and score well on tests, which will, I think standardized tests, which lead to more opportunities, have better scoring, better funding, or whatever. See what programs work, what doesn't work. And I guess at the root of it, it seems like a good model. But for kids, it's not necessarily. And I only say that for myself because I think school failed me. Right. Going through it, because I learned a whole hell of a lot more as an adult that I could have learned in school, and I feel like I was just.
Well, you're trained to, like you just said, you're trained to take a test.
There was a lot more learning that had to happen after high school that might have been able to. I could have skipped a whole bunch of stuff in high school that I never used as an adult. Like, I'm sorry, but Shakespeare, no. Dump that. Yeah. Cursive writing, we have dumped that. Right. We don't need it. Dump it. Like, and there's so many other things, but.
Well, and there's other areas where like you said, we failed our children because we failed to teach them about life, right? Mm-hmm. And one of those things, I mean, we can look at it, but financial literacy, right? Most kids don't even know what that is. Oh, we got to balance a checkbook? What do you mean? We got to balance it. What do you mean? We got money on the card, Mom. What do you mean?
It goes deeper than that, because then you're talking about credit. Now you're talking about getting loans. Now you're talking about how are you going to pay for your college loans? Right. Do the math. How is this all working? And
I remember when I was in Alaska. I was up at when my dad was in the service. Right. I was up in Alaska in a DoD school, and I think it was fourth grade or third grade. We had to. They gave us a checkbook. Literally, it was a paper checkbook. You wrote checks. You had to pay this bill. You had to pay that bill. You had to, if you got paid, you had to add in your pay. You had all of these things you had to do, and that was your math. That was part of your math project. Right. But it was ongoing for a whole year, so it didn't stop just because or if you had a Christmas bonus present, And this was back in the, I'm going to just say this was back in the 70s, okay? But it was back in the 70s, but it was, the lessons learned is carried forth today, right? That hey, I only made X number of dollars. I can't spend 3 times that because I only made X number of dollars, right?
But you were learning practical, useful.
Yeah, useful topics. Education, right? Useful stuff, especially when it came to finances and literature, right? Hey, you got a loan, you got to pay it. But I don't want to pay it. Oh, no, it don't matter. You got a loan, you got to go pay that loan, right? And it teaches you that, the importance of responsibility, And when it comes down to parents, as far as looking at the way those things are done, I'm thankful for my parents, but our responsibility as parents is to do what? Is to raise responsible children. That's our responsibility, And if we can't even teach them how to balance a checkbook, we're not helping them in their life, because now they're going to get in trouble when they become adults because they've overspent. They spent too much on their trip to Vegas or something. Oh, we spent too much money. Well, what do we do? I guess we don't eat this month. No, now they're going to borrow more money to take care of this debt that they didn't have, and now again, it's just spiral of bad things start to happen, right? Because you just overspent. And you look at something like that on our federal level, and they just continue to spend money like it's nothing. We have almost a $31 trillion debt.
Well, they printed over the past 2 years. They printed like 70% of our.
Yeah,
money.
Yeah, it went from like 5 trillion in circulation to over 20 trillion in
It
circulation.
was insane. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Is this
just
true?
Keep on printing more money. Yeah.
That's why gas prices have spiked. It's like, but we are not making more money.
Yeah. Actually making less money, you know? And you see those, I mean, speaking of inflation, I mean, you just got to look at the gas pump, look at the food prices, look at, what is it now? I think a Costco, I just went there yesterday. I think it was 5 something at Costco. In Molokai, it was, when I was there on the 1st of the month of June, I was out there, it was $6.15.
Jesus.
And that was I was like, my goodness, that was the 1st of the month. Everything's gone up since. It was probably closer to what, 6:30, 6:40 out there on Molokai. Wait, what?
I also want to ask, like, I mean, I just want to ask people in general, like, if the cost of gas per barrel or the petroleum barrels hasn't gone up that much and is stable at a certain price, how come our gas prices are still so high, and how come they still creep up
And keep going higher.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a great question. Why is it going up higher and higher? Is it the production guys are not
Ukraine.
making?
It's like,
Yeah, they're
know,
blaming
man.
Ukraine, they blame Putin, they blame everybody else. But at the end of the day, I'm just going to say it. It's just government policy, current administrative government policies that are just failing. They're failing the American people, and that's the reality. You know, they're look at our gas prices. I don't. The state's going to say we're having an economic surge and an economic boom, and it's like, for who? Because I feel it in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I go to gas. I mean, I go to Costco, and just so I can get the cheaper gas, and now that's over $5 a gallon. You go to 76 or something out in the market outside of Costco, and you're talking $5.50, $5.60. It's going up to $6 for just for gas. What about food? Right, the food cost of food going up.
Food's going up.
Everything is going up, you know, and it was like, oh no, but we're building back better. We're building back.
Store shelves are emptying out too, you know?
Exactly. And it's like, why? Why is all of this happening? Why are we having these shortages? Oh, it's the what do they call that? The supply chain issues. It's like, really? I don't know. Is it really a supply chain issue, or is it self-created? Do we create this problem ourselves, you know, from our own administrative policies? Or I should say our own failed administrative policies.
Like, I went to Best Buy the other week to buy memory cards for my cameras. Completely sold out of every single type of memory card. Best Buy. I was like, how?
Wow.
That's a common product. Like, you
would think you'd have enough of those,
it's
right?
a memory card. Nope. Completely sold out of everything.
Wow.
So I had to go to another store, Target, and they only had a few.
Wow. And you probably bought all those right or left.
Well, no,
right?
I just needed one. I'm not greedy.
Hey.
Should have.
Market price. Let's see.
Wear a little trench coat with
That's right,
all the
right.
memory cards stuck inside. And,
How many
hey,
you
what
want,
do you
right? Just like the rich watches before, right?
Yes.
How many you want? What?
I got 64, 128. I got 256. What do you want?
What do you want? Yeah. Oh, you want a terabyte? Wow.
That's going to cost you.
That's gonna cost you.
That's going to cost you a lot.
Yeah. That's going to cost you a lot more than you think, right?
But I mean, we laugh about it, but it can probably get scary.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do if I can't find memory cards? I mean, it seems on the surface like a mundane problem, but okay, well, you have all of these people that have their businesses
Right.
revolving around photography, videography, and the like, who need these things.
Right. And if they can't get them, then their business suffers, or they got to start clearing off
Right.
old records. Oh, I got to take this off in order to accommodate that. Well, gee, but that was like 3 years ago, and the memory chip isn't working anymore because we've advanced a little bit further along. You know?
And they get old too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But it's a very real problem. And inflation as a whole is a very real problem. I think, remember back in, there was an article when it came out in Star Advertiser about 3 or 4 months back. And they were talking about that. At that time, it was like energy cost was up 33%. And that was 3 or 4 months ago, right? Food costs were up 8%. And this is a conservative, right? And you're going, what's it going to be in 6 months? Well, guess what? Here we are 6 months later, and you're going, yeah, I get it. We're going to it's probably even higher than it was then, and it is. You look at the prices, it is. You know, you look at the food. Look at food and food costs as a whole. You know, would you maybe have spent say $500 on groceries before? That same $500 is buying maybe half of what you were able to buy before, right? So he's like, well, maybe I won't buy all of the steak today. Maybe I'll buy hot dogs instead, or I won't buy the chicken. I'll just go buy some, some tuna in a can or something. I'm not going to buy that poke today. I'm gonna go buy, I'll go buy the tuna in a can here. So.
Maybe this is our government's roundabout way to battle the obesity epidemic in America. Just make food is super expensive and unavailable.
Then everybody will start fasting. That's right. Yeah, there you go. Instead of eating 3 times a day, they're going to eat twice a day. Yeah, right. Okay. Hey,
how are we fighting diabetes? Inflation.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good. No, it doesn't work. But yeah. Oh my
no,
gosh.
because then you end up just going to eat cheap junk food.
Right.
So it makes it worse.
Which still costs just as much as if you had gotten a regular food. Right. I mean, I saw something today. If you don't mind us going there, but they're talking about this thing where Governor Ige signed the $18 an hour living wage issue, right? And on the surface, it sounds great, right? But it sounds great for who? Because when I look at this as a business owner, if I had to choose between paying you $18 an hour or paying nobody, then what would I do? Right? Let's say I got to make my costs are not going up, my profits are not going up. So how do I make that balance? Well, guess what? Instead of paying you for 40 hours a week, I'm going to cut you back to you got now that 18 hours a week, or now you got 19 hours a week because I can't really afford to pay you 40 hours a week. So there's going to be
right.
huge.
You go to any grocery store and you have how many checkout lanes have an actual person there?
Right. Not many anymore.
No,
they're all automated.
Safeway, and there's like maybe one,
right?
And that's for like the really old people,
right?
And then all the other ones are self-serve,
right?
So okay, I mean sometimes it's okay, it's convenient,
right?
But then long term, that's somebody's job that's gone.
Somebody's job is gone,
right?
And so is it really benefiting? And if you start to think about this, I tell people, so let's look at this. The guy that's making $18 an hour today. You got a person, I think they said it's going to start today and sometime in 2026 or 2030 is when this thing actually, 2028, sorry, is when it actually goes into effect and you're going to have all of this. I said, okay, so you got the guy today making $18 an hour. And the guy coming out of high school 3 or 4 years from now is going to be making $18 an hour. You're going to go, well, wait a minute. The guy that's making 18 is going to say, wait a minute, I've been working for 4 years, 5 years. I want 20-something dollars an hour now. And a guy making 20-something, I want 30. And a guy 30, I want 40, I want 50. And he's going to escalate up. So who's going to be the real beneficiary of this is not the intended party. In my mind, the real beneficiary is going to be the state tax office and the federal tax office. Because that person that was making, say, previously $10.50 an hour is now making $18 an hour. Well, $18 an hour puts you at $37,000 a year in income if you're working 40 hours a week. Well, that just moves you up a whole nother tax bracket. You're now in a 22% tax bracket versus the 10 that you were at before. Oh, and the guy that was making, again, that escalation of rates and incomes, that guy's now going to be making, instead of the 22% tax bracket, he's in the 30%, or he's in the 28, and he's in 30, and he's in 40. And it's just escalating. So who's going to be the real beneficiary of this is not the intended recipient, but it's going to really be the state and the federal tax offices. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you start to look at, they don't talk about it like that. I've watched them all tout how good this thing is. And many business owners that I've talked to are just going, how are we going to pay for this?
Prices go up.
Yeah, prices are going to go up, which means consumer levels go up. Consumer levels are going up. Cost is going up on this side. More food is going up this side. It's like, yeah. So that same Happy Meal you used to buy at McDonald's, but you may remember this. I remember like $2, $3.
It used to be $2
right?
when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's like, but a Happy Meal, $10, right?
Yeah.
So in 2 years, that Happy Meal is going to be 15, 18 for the same Happy Meal. Mm-hmm. So are we really benefiting people by this? Or are we just escalating this to a point of, well, hey, we're making more money. So, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see the benefit in this personally. I just don't see it. I don't see how that's going to work. And most businesses, you look at them even today, they're already paying people $12, $15 an hour. say the Jack in the Boxes.
Yeah.
I've drove through, did a drive through in Maui, out in Wailuku, and the Jack in the Box, big sign, right? X number of dollars, paying $15 start. Oh, manager, $10,000 signing bonus. Assistant manager, $5,000 signing bonuses. Worker is like a $1,500 signing bonus. Is like, man, what is that saying, right? They're desperate for people to come back to work because they need to have more people working. Again, we created this, our own self-created problems, if you will. I think that's when I heard that solution is, you create the problem and then you provide the solution to the problem that you created and you look like a hero, right? Well, wait a minute.
Vicious circle.
Yeah. Right. You created this and now you got the solution to say, I'm solving the problem that I created. And now I look at like I'm the hero. I was like,
it's actually a great business model.
it works
proven
great.
to work over and over. Like, what was it? Norton antivirus? Was that the one? One of the original ones. It's like, hey,
Or
if we
McAfee?
create, one of those antivirus for computers. Like, what if we created a virus for the computers, and then
we have the
we have the
solution
software
for it. There you go.
to fight it, and then we just keep creating different viruses that our software can battle.
Because
So you continually need to update.
Right.
You can have to have
hey, you
subscriptions
just
and
got
stuff.
The pink slip
Like,
virus.
Oh my god.
You have just launched the pink. Remember that one, that commercial? You have just launched the pink
Yes.
slip virus. Everybody freaks out. Oh no! And you see it all over the. I think it was a Southwest commercial airlines. Need to get away. Launch. Oh no!
All right, moving along here. So on your thing, you have sex and human trafficking, which I've had guests on my podcast talk about that, specifically with local sex abuse treatment centers and stuff like that, where they actually help out young girls that get taken out of the sex trafficking scheme and they don't have anywhere else to go.
Good. That's good. We have those programs in place. When I say, in the sex and the human sex trafficking and all that, I think, I don't think people have a full realization here in Hawaii of what that actually looks like. I remember reading some statistics. I think that they said on the Big Island alone last year, there was over 600 people, well, mostly kids, that had disappeared. And you were like, oh, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. Like, I don't know, 600 children disappeared.
On the Big Island? Yeah, that's like Stephen King stuff.
Right.
Man. That's a lot.
Right. And he said, well, yeah, but I said, no, but look at it. I talked to a guy yesterday. He had gone into, he works with an organization where they've actually been able to rescue. I think he said they've been able to rescue about 132 young ladies that have been in these programs. And he said, we're not going to talk about their methods and how to go about doing it. I said, I don't really want to know that. I said, more important is you're actually able to go do something. And you've proved that these 132 girls now at least have an opportunity to have a life where they may not have had that. They may have been working the streets somewhere. And I've had another guy, he came up to me, he was like, are you serious about that? You really want to end that? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, if you're serious about that, let me tell you a story. I just came in. I just got back. We were took 4 girls. We rescued them out of a house. This young man, he was a prisoner. He was in prison. And he had reformed his life. And he said, you know what? This part of my responsibility, I want to give back to the community because I know this ring. I know what they do. And he said, I want to give back. So I'm going to go work with people. If we find out that we know of a particular place or house and we know where it is, we're going to go take these kids out. And I was very, his story was heart-wrenching, really. But it was one of those, you're like, man, we need more like you that are willing to do that to save our children. Save these young girls, save these young boys from that type of scenarios in life. I'm like, man, and if that's what we got to do, that's important in my mind, to be saving our children. Our state motto is what? Uamau ke'eo ka'aina kapono, right? The life of the land is perpetuated in righteousness. Well, if our children are a legacy, what are we doing to help them? What are we doing to save them? Or are we just going to let them be out there? We're going to let them be out there in the crazy world of the sex and human trafficking. I mean, our children are at stake. Our legacies are at stake. But if that's what we're going to be doing, my goodness, people, let's go. Stop this. This has to stop. I'm sorry. That whole issue has to stop. We cannot continue down this road, because if they're our future, then we're destroying our future because we're not taking care of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not treating our children as the treasures they should be, right? We're not taking care of them. And if they're getting abducted, taken away, I mean, I don't want to go into all the details of the description. I'm sure you know, but listening to it, it was just one of those, you're going, my goodness. And they're part of that, right? Our children, young girls, 13, 14, 15 years old, and some even younger, even boys, that are involved in that. You go, my goodness, we've got to be coming up with better restrictions. We have an open port. People say we don't have borders here in Hawaii. Like, we don't. Where's our border? Our border is the shoreline. Yeah. You park a boat 3 or 4 miles offshore, you can easily bring in a dinghy. You can have people loading people on, loading people off. Nobody's going to know. You're right back offshore and you're gone. Nobody will ever know. You're like, wow, we didn't know it was so bad. I'm like, it happens all the time. You can even look at, you've heard stories, right, in containers coming in from different countries. And I mean, you look at them and you go, wow, those are not just stories. They really happen. Where you got a fake container, you got fake walls, you got kids living in there, people living in there, and you're just like, my goodness.
Do you get the sense that the public doesn't want to hear that or hear about it? It's too, say, disturbing of a topic to really address.
Yeah, I think to some extent they want to turn the blind eye, or put your head in the sand and it doesn't exist until it really happens to you.
Yeah.
Or until it happens to one of your family members. Then it becomes a reality and you go, wow, why aren't we doing something about that? Well, my question is, why do we got to wait? Why do we got to wait till something happens in order to start doing these programs? Why don't we start doing those programs now when we actually have the ability to do so? Why are we going to wait for kids to disappear? And not just kids, adults disappear too, right? Why are we going to wait for them? That's part of the issue, right? In my mind, we can always have, I'm going to say, mercenary like guys that we were just talking about that would go into these houses and take these young folks out of there. Get them out of there if we have them. If they know where they're at, let's go. Let's take them out. There's enough people, I'm sure, that would be more than willing to go in there and help and assist with that if they knew what the whole situation really was going on, especially in their own communities. Yeah. Yep. Sorry, I know I went on a little tangent there, but it's like, man, that kind of gets you going there.
Yeah, it does. It does. There's a couple of other points on here, but I kind of wanted to ask a question different from all this. Is there a politician, historical or current, that you currently model yourself off of or look up to or have looked up to growing up?
Wow, that's never thought about that one. As a politician, I guess.
Well, you're trying to get into politics, like,
Yeah. If I would say a real politician that I could look back through history over time, I look at some of the original founding fathers, the Jeffersons, the Monroes, E.C. Washington, Ben Franklin. He was never a politician, but he was a diplomat to France, right? So he technically was a politician. You look at those figures, they were not perfect. They didn't live in a perfect world. They never claimed to be perfect, but they tried to establish a system that could be perfect if we were allowed to do it, as long as we were willing to fight for that freedom, as long as we were willing to say, this is my country, this is my legacy for my kids. And I like what they did. If you really think about it, they were politicians, but they were only there for 8 years. Their whole concept was what? Hey, we're only here for a little time, and then we're going to go back and be, ranch owners, or we're going to go back and own our farms, and we're going to go back and do our work for our life. We're only here for a short period of time to do the work of the country, and we're not going to live off of that. We're going to go over there and we're going to go back and go be farmers. We're going to go back and be ranchers. We're going to go back and do, the work of the land, and then we're going to go over and be temporary. And if you look at it in the history, they only received minimal, as a stipend for their pay. You look at some of the congressional pays today, and you shake your head. You're like, my goodness, these guys get paid a lot of money. Okay. So if I were to model, I'll say a particular group, I would say it would probably be more towards the founding fathers, right? Only because of what they were going through. What they had gone through, the adversity had gone through to get to that point, but also where they're at, when their lives it's not like their lives stopped. They still had to go run the ranch. I think Thomas Jefferson was bankrupt when he died. I think George Washington was almost bankrupt when he was passed away. Many of they because of the farms, right? They had bad seasons. They didn't do good one time. And you look at some of them, you're like, man, their legacies were what? They didn't leave the rich legacy that they later on became. And so if you look at something like that, I'm like, yeah, I like the way these guys were doing things, because they were not doing it for to be a politician. They were doing it for the love of the country. And I think many times we forget that, right? That they were doing it for the love of the country. They were doing it because let's go make Thomas Jefferson look really great today. I don't know. I mean, did they have challenges? Yeah. But I like the way those guys think. And you can look back, you can even look at Abraham Lincoln. You can look at his life for 4 years. But you look at all the failures he had prior to him becoming the president. He said he ran for the House, he lost. Ran for the Senate, he lost. Ran for the House, he lost. Then he won, then he lost again. Then he won. I mean, it's a repeating of things over and over and over. So if you look at something like Abraham Lincoln, you go, man, this guy didn't give up. He didn't give up. But that's, again, that intestinal fortitude that you see in our forefathers, right, of the country. This guts that they're not going to give up. And those are the type of things that made the United States what it was and what it still is today. Is that fortitude, that guts to go like, no, we're not going to give up. Just because it got a little tough, we're not going to give up. We're going to make it. And I think that's what I admire most of all. Many of those old politicians, right? Yeah.
Just the guts to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
They did something that nobody had ever done in history, really. Create a country from almost scratch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, wow.
What are we doing? Well, we're not a kingdom because we overthrew the king.
Yeah.
We're not a queendom because we overthrew the queen. So what are we? Wow. We are a political
Nobody
party.
has done it as successfully as the United States has since.
Right.
Interesting stuff. Do you have a favorite quote?
Of all the ones, I think I got a couple of different ones, but I think if a favorite quote I would have would be, it comes from the biblical quote, Jeremiah 29:11. Essentially, is that I am the Lord. I'm the Lord your God. I am here to prosper you. I am here to give you a hope and a future. I like that because it's giving you hope that He's here to prosper you, not to take away things from you. He's here to make your life better, if you're willing to understand who He is, right? Again, biblical quote, if you look at it, it's Matthew 22:37-41, right? You got to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And then you love your neighbor as yourself. If we really look at those two right there, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. My goodness, do you think we're going to have all the problems we have now if you are loving your neighbor like you love yourself? Probably not.
Probably not.
Because you're not going to be, You're not going to be trying to fight with your neighbor. You're not going to be fighting with your spouse or your significant other. Because why? I love them as much as I love myself. I'm not going to be fighting with myself. That's like that movie, was it Jim Carrey movie, Liar, Liar, where he couldn't tell a lie. He had to
He's punching himself in the courtroom.
What happened? What happened to you? Well, I kicked my own, in the bathroom there. It's like, what? Yeah. You're just not going to do it, right? But especially if you love yourself, your neighbor as much as you love yourself, you're just not going to be doing the atrocities we see today. Things that are happening, like we mentioned earlier about the sex or the human trafficking, you're just not going to be doing that. So they're sitting with those are two. On my website, you'll see something I say, I love to empower you to empower you, right? And I like doing that because if I can empower you to do something with your life, to show you that you can do more than what they tell you can do. I grew up, like I said earlier, I grew up on the West Side, right? And I grew up in Waianae, and I've heard it many, many times from the kids there. It's like, oh, I can only do this because I'm from Y&I. That's all I get. Like, no, you can do way more than that. You can be way better than that. You can. Why are you limiting yourself to what somebody told you are? You know, when you can be way more successful, and be way more better than just, oh, I'm just this person, or I'm just from Kalihi, so that's all I am. I'm just from, you think, pick the spot, right? You can be way better than that. You don't have to listen to the stereotype somebody tells you, oh, just because you're from there, that's all you're ever going to be. Right? It's like, please, if that was where I was going to be when I grew up, I would never be where I'm at today. You know, but you made a choice. You make responsibilities. You make the responsible choices in your life, and you say, I don't want to be there. I don't want to stay in that mindset. I got to be growing. I got to be achieving. I got to be accomplishing something in my life, and then work yourself out of that mindset. Right? This is all I can ever be. It's like, no, you can be way more than that.
What's your greatest advice for somebody that's stuck in their own mindset of boxing themselves in to the point where they can only do or they can only be what they are right now?
Yeah, you know, I think I'll use my sister as a good example. Right? We were having a discussion one day, and she's like, you know, why do I feel so stupid around you? And I'm looking at her, and she's going to hate me, I tell you. She's going to hear this story, and she's going to hate this. She's going to be like, what? I say, she's like, why do I feel so stupid around you? And I said, because you are. And she looked at me like, you know, she's ready. You know, she's my older sister, right?
Only your brother could say that, right?
But but I was trying to get her to understand. I said, but it's not because you're stupid. It's the choices you've made have made you stupid. And she's like, I don't understand. I said, okay, let me ask you this question. Since high school, how many books have you read? And she's like, I don't know, maybe 1, 2. I was like, right. I read probably 4 to 5 books a month, right? And I said, and they're not always, you know, the self-help books, or they're not always the help. Sometimes they're fun books to read, right? I like, you just go have a good time reading a good book. I said, but I read 4 to 5 books a month. And I said, now that's since, 40 something years. You add that up over time, and oh my gosh, this guy's read a lot of books, right? I said, so when I say you're stupid, it's because you've made yourself stupid because you haven't grown. Here you are at that time. I think she was 56 years old or something at that time. I said, so you haven't read anything for 38 years. Your brain is still 38 years ago. Everything that's in there happened 38 years ago. It didn't happen in the last, didn't happen in the last 10 years. It didn't happen in the last 5 years. It didn't happen. Everything is in your brain is from 38 years ago. So when I say you're stupid, you literally are stupid because you didn't grow in the last 38 years. She's like, well, I don't agree with that. I said, I get it. I said, but as a good case in point, I said, you talk about at the time, she said, I want to go learn how to do Microsoft Word and I want to go learn how to do all these things. I said, well, why don't you go down to the, I think it was West Oahu, they were having a class where you could go learn this for like $100, right? I said, invest $100 in yourself to go learn how to do all of these things. You can learn how to do Microsoft Word, Excel, I can't think, PowerPoint, all these other things. Yeah. I said, for $100, you invest in $100 in yourself to go down and do what? To invest in yourself so you learn how to do something else. I said, now you understand what I'm saying when I say you're stupid is because you refuse to grow. You refuse to say, I'm 56 years old. I need to change what I'm doing. And so if I was one thing I would tell you kids, never stop growing. Never stop learning because you're always going to learn something, right? And even as an adult, never stop growing, right? Never stop learning. Because if you stop learning, then what are you in? You're in a coffin. Yeah. With 2 open ends. You're in a rut, right? You hear this, I don't know if you've heard that before. But a rut is a coffin with 2 open ends. You're just driving down the same road. Nothing has changed.
Yeah, I like to use the term like you're in a state of decay.
Yeah.
Like you're either growing or you're decaying. Which are you, and where are you at? Yep. And it has nothing to do with your age.
Nope.
So.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, my sister's probably going to hear this and she's going to like, see, you brought that out on the road. Everybody knows now. They think I'm stupid. You're not stupid. But the choices you made have made you stupid, right? So you just never stop growing. If there's one piece of advice, that's what I would tell kids today is never stop growing. I mean, here I am today. I'm 57. I'll be 58 next month. Again, I read prodigiously. I'm always reading something. Maybe not so much books anymore, because now you get ebooks, you got articles you can read online, you got stuff that you can look at, even if it's simple how to do things. And you got videos you can look at now on YouTube, the how-to videos. Why not watch a few videos, right? Yeah. How do I change the electric socket? Turn the power off first,
Because that's where I'm at. I'm not so much in the reading level. I'm at the video level where, hey, there's all the YouTube. I mean, if you have internet connection and you can connect to Google, you have YouTube with this wealth of knowledge.
Right.
You don't have to watch, fail army videos all the time. They're funny. You got to balance play and entertainment with work and education and learning and growing yourself.
Right.
So I'm constantly looking at, how to edit this, how to film this, what cameras to use, what lenses are good, what lenses are bad, what microphones are good. How do I make my lighting look better? And you can, if you go back and look at all my podcasts over the 2 years, they started out pretty crappy.
Right.
I had one camera, I had the mics, and it was just a constant evolution and growing that and getting better and better and better.
And it's learning
to what it is today.
It's learning how it is. Yeah. That makes so much sense. But again, if you're not, can you imagine if you had stayed where you were 2 years ago?
It would look like crap.
You'd be like, man, how come I'm not getting any better? How come nobody's watching my podcast? How come nobody cares?
Joe Akana's not calling me to come on my show?
Yeah, how come? What's going on here?
Or the mayor. I had the mayor on. It was really good.
Right. I mean, but again, if you're not growing as a kid, as a child, adult, or person, if you're not growing, then what I think I heard it once. They said it was like, if you're not busy being born, then you're busy dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, bro, that makes so much sense. I mean, there's so much technology today. There's so many things we could be doing better as far as technology-wise, or even in a state here. There's so much things we could be doing better. Good example when COVID first hit, 2 years ago, and you heard all the people say they go to the unemployment line, and the system they were using was MS-DOS. That was like 1990s, the MS-DOS. You're like, what? You type in.
We got to hire people that know how to use this.
Nobody knows anymore. Right.
They're all like 60, 70 years old.
Right. And they're all going, whoa, you want to give me a job? Because I'm 60 years old and I'm the only one who knows how to do the MS-DOS. Oh, yeah, I know that. We're like, man, I'm back to War Games. Remember that movie, War Games, right? And we're like, oh my gosh. Hi, Hal. Hal, whatever. I was like, my goodness. But those technologies are available. And I think they've learned subsequently that, hey, we better change something. We better update our system because this is kind of getting a little antiquated and outdated. But why would it take so long? Why would it take an event to do that, right? Why would we have to have something like this in order to say, oh, we need to go fix that? Why aren't we planning, right? When you talk about infrastructure, another good issue, right? Why aren't we planning for our infrastructure shortfalls? We know there's a lot of stuff that are breaking, but instead of planning, it's like you're in reaction mode. Yeah. There's pipes that are going to be breaking and causing all kind of issues. Why aren't we preparing for that? Why aren't we starting in sections and areas? Hey, we're going to start repairing because we know these are the older pipes. It's not a matter of if they break, it's when they break, because they are going to break, right? Why aren't we planning for that? I don't know. That's part of the government that's like, oh, we'll kick that can down the road and cross that bridge when it happens. Okay, but again, we're reacting instead of being proactive in how we go about doing business. Yeah.
Joe, it's been over an hour. It's been great getting to know you.
Wow.
Did that go by fast or what?
Yeah, it's been an hour already. My goodness, we feel like we just started talking here. Wow, my goodness. Okay.
No, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Did you have any last sound bites or anything you want to punch out there to the audience?
Yeah. Like I said, you can always go check out my website. It's at joeakana.com. Okay. You have a lot of good stuff coming out there. Watch the videos. But this upcoming election is going to be critical, in our country's future, in our state's future. And I tell people this, the seriousness is that if we don't do something to change in 2022, we may not see a 2024. As far as on election ways, if we don't change what's happening, if we don't change the integrity of our elections, that's always a question, right? And people, that was never happening. Yeah, but there's enough doubt that if we don't change the integrity of our elections and make sure that people are all an agreement. Yeah, okay, what happened, right? But those are the kind of things we may not see in 2024. I mean, you look at the inflation going through the roof. You look at all these issues that are happening, southern border in the United States that's, in the continental, that's just atrocious. You look at all these issues they're having, supply chain management, potential pandemic for another pandemic coming along. All these other things that are like, guys, these are not happen chance. These things are happening for a reason. So if we continue to do what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. And if we're happy with the way this is progressing down the road, then okay, keep voting for the same guys that are in place. But if you don't want that and you want to see a change, what is that definition? Insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result, but never changing anything. Yeah. So if you want to see something change, then we got to change who is in the office to give the state, to give the federal government a different course of action. Unless you like it. Unless you're happy with paying $6 a gallon of gas and rising inflation and continual erosion of your freedoms, your First and Second, Third, Fourth, Fifth Amendment rights. If you're happy with all of those things, then okay, keep on voting for the same people that's going to be in there. Otherwise, check it out. Go check out the website. Check out all the candidates. I'll encourage people to go look at the candidates. Don't just go off of a sign that's out there. Go look at the candidates, see what they stand for, see what they've actually done in their life. And are they qualified to represent you in that prospective place? I had people ask me that. What makes you think you're qualified to go be a U.S. congressman? I said, well, that's a great question. I said, well, first of all, how does anybody know if they're ever really qualified to be in that position? I said, but I've been in there. I have the educational background, right? I have, a master's degree in business. I have a master's degree in strategic intelligence. But I've also been in experience in working up at U.S. Pacific Command. When I was getting my second master's degree, I was in D.C. for a year, sitting through the House Armed Services Committee meeting. That was part of our curriculum, right? You had to sit through these meetings so you understand what happens. House Armed Services Committee meeting, Senate Armed Services Committee meeting, and they're boring. I just tell you, they are. They
sound super exciting.
Yeah. You need toothpicks and several Mountain Dews to get through those things, right? But you're sitting through there because that's your curriculum, your grade, and you're taking notes and you're trying to figure out how does this relate to me. And I came back when I got back in 2014. I got back up at U.S. Pacific Command. They made me the readiness manager, and we were looking at a whole bunch of things that were not quite at that level where they needed to be. And we kept putting in all of that experience. Having sat through that gives me an opportunity to go, we need to fill out this paper. We need to do this. We need to put it this way, phrase it this way. And we had a meeting with the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. I think this was, I'm going to say 2018 timeframe, 2017, 2018 timeframe. And we outlaid the problem. This is what's going on. We ended up getting he literally wrote us the check that day for $32 million. Because of the experience that I had gone through up there sitting like, this is how we got to guide this thing through this path. And what did you get? He literally wrote us the check for $32 million. Nice. And then he says, hey, is there anything else you guys need? I said, well, that was just for the equipment and the thing. We need 100 people to actually man those things that we're trying to get for the readiness equipment. He goes, 100 billets. Yes, sir, that's what we need, 100 billets. He goes, let's do it. Wrote that too. He said, let's get it into it. You're going to have people to do that. So we ended up getting, our personnel was increased at the command. And we ended up getting, like I said, $32 million. But having not sat through that kind of environment, I'd be lost. How do you go about doing that? I have no idea. But you sat through that long enough and you go, wow, okay, I know how to do this because I sat in that class. I was sitting in that, my goodness, when is, doing the thing, right? When is this class going to get over? Because I want to go, right? Yeah. But having not had that experience of going through it, I would never know how to walk my way through that today. And so when they say, hey, do you have that experience? Yeah, I do. I do have that experience. I have done that. And it, it proved beneficial for the Pacific Command. So we were able to do what we got to get done.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
Roger that. Joe, I wish you the best of luck in this coming election. Be rooting for you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I won't be voting in your area because I live in town.
Oh, that's okay. You know people.
I know people.
You know people that are outside. That's right.
I'm a townie.
Yeah, there you go. And like I said, it's take that time. Go learn about the candidates. There's a lot of really good candidates out there. on both sides,
Yeah,
right? On both
absolutely.
sides. There's a lot of good candidates, but go look at them. Go investigate. Don't just take it for granted of what somebody tells you about somebody. Go look at them. And if they line up with your values, if they line up with what you think and believe, then vote for them. You know, if they don't, then vote for the other guy.
vote for
you
the
know,
other guy.
who other guy who doesn't. Right? But it's like, but at least you took the time to get out there and get to know that person, that candidate. Why do I like him? Why I don't like him? You know, he said this or he said that. Oh yeah, but he also said, go get to know him.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get to know them, then how do you know those people are who you say they are? You know, if you look at, if I could just diverge for a minute, you look at a couple of the House bills that went through last year. You know, House Bill 1697. Most people don't even know what this bill was, but it was a act or a bill that was basically saying it's okay to teach your third grader about sex education, and they called it a quiet bill. It's okay to teach your third grade about anal sex. It's okay to teach them about all of these different things. And you're going,
No.
where is that even in anybody's brain to do this for a third grader?
No.
As a third grader, I was never there.
No.
I'm like, I want to go play basketball, or I want to go play on the football field or something. I'm not even thinking about that. So in whose brain is that okay? Or the other one, House Bill 2125, right? This was again a bill that basically said if you as a parent didn't like what the teacher was teaching you, your kids, the teacher could have you arrested and thrown in jail and fined up to $5,000 because you didn't agree with what the teacher was teaching you. And nobody talks about these bills, but they were what they call quiet bills. They made it out of the House. They had 3 readings on the House floor. Nobody discussed it. Guess what? Goes over to the Senate and people are starting to go, wait, what is this bill? Well, there's enough people raised enough ruckus that he finally shut it down and said, no, we're not going to pass that bill. And it shut down in the Senate. But it was there. And those kind of bills happen all the time. And you're going, wait a minute. If we weren't aware of this bill would have passed and it would have been okay to be teaching your third grader about sex education. In what, I'm sorry, but in what atmosphere or what planet is that okay?
It's not okay.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
But it was okay for them to write the bill. And I heard someone say it the other day. They said, oh, the kids wrote the bill. Are you kidding me? and a 9-year-old wrote the bill? Come on, people. Let's get real, right? What are you guys talking about? But those are the kind of things, and you look at, that's why I'm encouraging people, go look at what's going on. Look at those guys and look at them. Look at their past. Look at their history. Look at what they're talking about. Because some of the guys that wrote those bills, they're running for office today in the state. And nobody's aware they were the ones writing these bills, right? I'm not going to name their names. People can go look at them themselves, okay? But they're out there. I'm just saying, take the time to go look at these things, guys, because they're out there. Those kind of bills are insane. Where in what planet is that okay? Not in my world. I'm sorry. It doesn't work well in my world. So appreciate the time. I'm sorry. I kind of diverged there and I went off on another little tangent.
We didn't even get to talking on Star Wars.
Oh, man.
That's another one.
Air traffic. That's right. We'll talk about that. But hey, I appreciate the time. Appreciate you taking listening and we're having this discussion. Truly do. Thank you, sir.
It's been so awesome.
You bet.
And as always, everybody, stay happy, Hawaii. Get through your shakas, too.